A 17-year-old Maasai girl named Nasirian puts on her red, blue and white beaded necklace. These beads tell everyone in her village about her love life, who likes her, how serious they are, and even private details about their relationship. For hundreds of years, the Maasai people have used strange but smart ways to find partners. They have a secret bead code for love messages, jumping contests to show off to future wives, fathers who spit on daughters for luck, and long talks about cattle before marriage. These weird customs might shock people today, but they helped build one of Africa's strongest warrior cultures that has lasted over 1,000 years. If you want to know how different people around the world find love, subscribe now. What comes next will totally change how you think about dating. Imagine you're a young Maasai woman walking through your village, and the intricate pattern of beads around your neck is broadcasting intimate details about your romantic life to everyone who knows how to read the code. In traditional Maasai society, beadwork was a beautiful yet sophisticated communication system. Young women would receive special bead necklaces from admirers, but here's where it gets fascinating. The colours, patterns, and even the way these beads were worn could signal everything from casual interest to deep romantic commitment, and sometimes even levels of physical intimacy. Think of it like an ancient version of relationship status updates, but way more complex and meaningful. Red beads might symbolise bravery and strength, while white could represent purity or peace. Blue is often connected to energy and the sky, and green is linked to health and the land. But the arrangement, the size, the specific patterns, and how the necklace sat on the body all carry different messages. What makes this even more intriguing is that certain bead gifts were given privately and carried symbolic, romantic, or even sexual meaning that only the couple understood. Imagine having a secret code with someone you cared about, where a simple change in how you wore your jewellery could communicate your feelings without saying a word. Some ethnographers suggest that experienced Maasai women could look at a young woman's beadwork and immediately understand not just who was courting her, but how serious the relationship was, whether her family approved, and what stage of courtship she had reached. It was like having your entire dating history displayed in beautiful, wearable art. But here's what makes this tradition even more remarkable. The beadwork indicated social status, age group, and even spiritual beliefs. A single necklace could tell the story of a woman's entire social identity, making it one of the most sophisticated non-verbal communication systems ever developed. The craftsmanship involved was extraordinary too. Women would spend months creating these intricate pieces, often working by firelight after their daily duties were complete. Each bead was carefully selected, each pattern deliberately chosen. The time and skill invested made these necklaces incredibly valuable, monetarily, emotionally, and socially. Today, while modern Maasai communities have adapted to changing times, you can still see echoes of this bead language in traditional ceremonies and cultural celebrations. It's a reminder that long before social media, people found incredibly creative ways to express their relationships and identities. Now let's talk about something that has absolutely baffled visitors to Maasai communities for generations: the practice of spitting as a blessing. If you saw someone spitting on a bride at a wedding, you'd probably be horrified. But in Maasai culture, this is one of the most powerful expressions of love, respect, and good wishes imaginable. The father of the bride blesses his daughter by spitting on her head and breasts, and spitting is a symbol of disgrace usually, but in Maasai Nation, it is thought to bring good luck and fortune. This is to wish her good luck and pray that she be fertile in her marriage. But this tradition goes far deeper than just wedding ceremonies. Before shaking hands with someone they hold in high esteem, a Maasai person will often spit on their own palm. It's a gesture of profound respect that completely flips our Western understanding of what spitting represents. Think about the cultural courage this requires. In a world where spitting is almost universally seen as disgusting or disrespectful, the Maasai have maintained a tradition that uses this same act as their highest form of blessing. It's like they took something considered negative and transformed it into pure love. The wedding ceremony itself is incredibly moving when you understand the cultural context. The bride's head is shaved, and lamb fat and oil are caressed on that spot, preparing her for this sacred moment. When her father spits on her forehead and breasts, he's transferring his protection, his hopes and his ancestral blessings to her new life. Saliva can also symbolize fertility and abundance in Maasai culture. Spitting on the bride can be seen as a wish for her to have a healthy and fruitful marriage, blessed with many children. In a culture where children represent economic security and social status, this blessing carries tremendous weight. What's even more fascinating is how this practice extends beyond weddings. Maasai elders will spit on children as blessings, warriors receive spit blessings before important missions, and even handshakes are preceded by spitting on palms to show respect. It's woven throughout their entire social fabric. The emotional power of this tradition becomes clear when you realise that the father uses it as a means of blessing his daughter as she starts a new phase of her life. Consider it their equivalent of a passionate embrace or a tearful "I am so proud of you." Some visitors have reported feeling deeply moved when they witness these ceremonies, despite their initial shock. There's something profound about seeing pure love expressed in such an unexpected way. It challenges our assumptions about how affection and respect should be shown. Get ready for what might be the most athletic courtship ritual ever created. Imagine if finding your future spouse depended not on your dating app profile, but on how high you could jump while performing a deep, rhythmic chant. Welcome to the world of Maasai warrior jumping competitions, where romance literally reaches new heights. This is performed by the Maasai warriors, and it's traditionally a mating dance, with men showing off their strength and how high they can jump into the air. But calling it just a jumping contest doesn't capture the incredible complexity and cultural significance of what's really happening. The Adamu dance is performed by young warriors, known as Morans, who are in their prime physical condition. These are members of specific age sets who have undergone years of training, initiation ceremonies, and warrior preparation. When they perform the Adamu, they're displaying everything their culture values: strength, endurance, grace, and spiritual connection. Picture this: a circle of warriors wearing traditional red shukas, their bodies painted with ochre, long hair braided, and adorned with feathers and beads. They begin with deep, throaty chants that seem to come from the earth itself. The rhythm builds, the energy intensifies, and then the jumping begins. But this isn't random jumping. Each leap is precisely controlled, with warriors launching themselves straight up, keeping their bodies rigid, feet together, landing softly and immediately, preparing for the next jump. The goal is about demonstrating perfect physical control while maintaining the chant and staying in perfect rhythm with the group. The young women watch from the sidelines, and yes, they're definitely judging. But they're not just looking at who can jump the highest, they're evaluating the total package: vocal strength, physical grace, endurance, and that indefinable quality we might call charisma or presence. The most skilled warriors often have their pick of romantic interests. What makes this even more fascinating is the psychological component. Imagine the pressure these young men face. Their romantic prospects literally depend on their athletic performance in front of the entire community. It's like American high school popularity contest cranked up to an extreme level. The competition aspect creates incredible dedication. Warriors spend months preparing, training not just their jumping ability, but their vocal strength for the chanting. They practice coordination, rhythm, and endurance. Some ethnographers report that successful Adamu performers are revered in their communities and often become leaders later in life. But there's a deeper spiritual element too. The jumping is said to connect the warriors with the sky, bridging the earth and heavens. It's about demonstrating their connection to Maasai cosmology and their role as protectors of the community. The really intriguing part is how this tradition has evolved. While modern Maasai communities have integrated with contemporary African society, the Adamu dance remains central to cultural celebrations and tourist experiences. Young warriors still take pride in their jumping abilities, even if their career paths now include everything from wildlife conservation to technology. Now we enter perhaps the most complex aspect of Maasai courtship, a system where love, economics, family politics, and cultural tradition intersect in ways that can seem completely foreign to modern Western sensibilities. This is the world of arranged marriages, cattle dowries, and family negotiations that can take years to complete. In traditional Maasai society, marriage is about the union of families, the exchange of wealth, and the continuation of bloodlines and cultural traditions. According to Maasai marriage customs, a Maasai man cannot marry while he is a warrior, which immediately creates a complex timing system around when romance can actually lead to marriage. The cattle exchange system is absolutely central to everything. In Maasai culture, cattle are currency, status symbols, spiritual connections, and family heritage all rolled into one. When families negotiate a marriage, they're essentially engaging in complex economic and social calculations that consider everything from the bride's family lineage to the groom's cattle herding skills. But here's where it gets really interesting and sometimes heartbreaking. The cattle exchange can become so complicated that it delays or even cancels marriages. Imagine being deeply in love with someone, but your families can't agree on whether the dowry should be 15 cattle or 20, or whether certain cattle meet the quality standards expected for such an important transaction. These negotiations aren't quick conversations. They can involve months of back and forth discussions between extended families, with elders examining bloodlines, assessing cattle health, considering seasonal factors, and evaluating the social implications of the union. It's like medieval European royal marriages, but with livestock instead of kingdoms. What makes this system particularly fascinating is how personal choice intersects with family arrangement. While families largely control the process, romantic preferences aren't completely ignored. A young woman's feelings about her potential husband are often considered, and successful marriages require some level of compatibility beyond just economic arrangement. The timing restrictions add another layer of complexity. Warriors must complete their service period and transition to elder status before they can marry. This means that romantic relationships often develop years before they can be formalised, creating long courtship periods where couples know they're interested in each other but can't take the next step. The cattle requirements also create interesting social dynamics. Wealthy families with large herds have more options and can negotiate more favourable marriages. But families with fewer cattle might have to be more strategic, sometimes pooling resources from extended family members to meet dowry requirements. Some modern Maasai families have adapted these traditions to contemporary economics. Instead of cattle, they might negotiate monetary payments, education funding, or other modern forms of wealth transfer. But the underlying principle remains marriage as a family affair requiring significant economic commitment. The dispute resolution aspects are particularly complex. If cattle die, if market values change, or if family circumstances shift, it can throw carefully negotiated marriage agreements into chaos. Elder councils often have to mediate these disputes, sometimes ruling on marriage cases that have been ongoing for years. The survival of Maasai courtship traditions in a modern, globalised world highlights both the adaptability of their culture and the challenges faced by indigenous communities. Today, young Maasai often balance education, careers, and social media with participation in traditional ceremonies like jumping competitions and elder-guided marriage negotiations. This intersection of modern and traditional life demonstrates how cultural practices can evolve while maintaining their significance. Specific traditions have adapted in unique ways. The bead language, while less central in urban areas, remains a vital part of cultural identity and a source of economic opportunity, with many Maasai women turning their beading skills into international businesses. Spitting blessings have been modified in some communities for hygiene reasons, while warrior jumping competitions attract tourists and income, raising questions about authenticity versus commercialization. Marriage negotiations blend traditional arrangements with modern dating, sometimes replacing cattle with money or modern goods, and education has given women greater influence in marital decisions. Environmental and social changes continue to shape these practices. Climate change affects cattle herds, directly influencing marriage economies, while young Maasai navigate multiple identities, blending modern clothing, technology, and global communication with traditional attire and ceremonies. Despite these pressures, Maasai culture demonstrates remarkable resilience, showing how traditions can adapt to contemporary realities while remaining meaningful, dynamic, and deeply tied to community identity. The Maasai courtship traditions, though often seen as bizarre by outsiders, reveal profound insights about human culture, relationships, and community bonds. Practices like bead communication, spitting blessings, and warrior jumping competitions are carefully structured systems that support romance while maintaining social cohesion. Bead communication, for instance, ensures that relationships are visible to the wider community, allowing families and elders to guide and support couples rather than leaving them isolated. These practices also highlight the complexity of social and gender roles, as well as the integration of spiritual beliefs into daily life. Women played important roles in guiding courtship, evaluating suitors, and influencing marriage negotiations, demonstrating that power and agency were not strictly patriarchal. Spiritual dimensions such as ancestral protection invoked in blessings or cosmic connections in jumping competitions show that romance was deeply intertwined with cultural and religious values. Competitions and rituals measured qualities beyond physical appearance, including health, skill, cultural knowledge, and social standing, offering a holistic view of compatibility. Ultimately, these traditions illustrate the human ability to create meaning, beauty, and emotional depth in any cultural context. What may seem unusual to outsiders is, within its own framework, practical, artistic, and spiritually significant. The Maasai have crafted courtship systems that support relationships, honour community structures, and reinforce cultural identity, reminding us that love and partnership are shaped by cultural values as much as personal feelings. How do we balance respect for cultural tradition with concerns about individual autonomy? What happens when ancient practices conflict with modern human rights concepts? And who gets to decide which traditions should survive and which should evolve? The marriage negotiation system raises particularly complex questions. While it provides extensive family support and has successfully maintained stable community structures for generations, it also potentially limits individual choice in ways that conflict with modern concepts of personal autonomy and gender equality. Young Maasai, especially women, sometimes find themselves caught between respect for their cultural heritage and desire for self-determination. Education has complicated these dynamics in fascinating ways. Educated Maasai women often report feeling torn between appreciation for their cultural traditions and frustration with practices that might limit their personal choices. Some have found creative ways to honour traditional forms while asserting more control over their romantic decisions. The economic aspects of these traditions also face modern challenges. Traditional cattle-based economies are being disrupted by climate change, urbanisation, and integration into cash-based national economies. Some families struggle to maintain traditional practices when the underlying economic systems have fundamentally changed. Tourism has created another layer of complexity. While cultural tourism provides crucial income for many Maasai communities, it also raises questions about authenticity, commodification, and cultural appropriation. Are jumping demonstrations for tourists maintaining tradition or performing a simplified version of it? The generational differences within Maasai communities are particularly striking. Elders often worry about cultural loss and the weakening of traditional social bonds, while younger community members sometimes feel constrained by practices that don't match their contemporary life experiences. But what's remarkable is how many Maasai communities are finding creative solutions that honour both tradition and modernity. Some families have modified traditional practices while maintaining their essential spiritual and social functions. Others have found ways to strengthen cultural traditions through modern means, using social media to connect Maasai communities across Kenya and Tanzania, or incorporating traditional practices into contemporary wedding celebrations. The most inspiring examples involve young Maasai who become cultural ambassadors, explaining their traditions to the outside world while also advocating for thoughtful evolution that maintains cultural integrity while addressing contemporary concerns. At the same time, these traditions challenge Western assumptions about independence in love and family life. By involving the community at every stage, the Maasai show that relationships can thrive when supported collectively, rather than existing in isolation. This perspective encourages us to see the diversity of human connections and recognize the strength found in communal bonds. Importantly, these traditions continue to adapt rather than disappear. Younger generations embrace modern tools like writing, technology, and even social media to preserve, share, and reinterpret their customs. Meanwhile, global recognition of Maasai culture through responsible tourism and ecological knowledge exchange strengthens both identity and sustainability. For the Maasai, these practices remain deeply personal, binding families together and sustaining cultural pride while evolving with the times. The Maasai courtship traditions challenge modern ideas of love by revealing the deeper wisdom behind practices often dismissed as strange. These rituals were never for spectacle, but were shaped by centuries of survival, helping communities endure droughts, conflicts, and the unforgiving realities of their environment. Every element of these customs carried meaning. Bead patterns allowed young women to express hidden feelings, jumping competitions showcased warriors' strength and devotion, and marriage negotiations reflected a community's commitment to stable, enduring relationships. Each tradition was a way of weaving love into the fabric of collective survival.